Welcome to our podcast. I'm Loes,
And I'm Nikki.
and the past couple of months I have lived in Leipzig and Nikki has lived in.
Turin.
And we're going to talk about two places where we also interviewed someone and dive a bit more deeper into what the social impact is and what the future of those places are. So can you tell me a bit more about your place that you want to talk about?
Of course. I did my interview about Bunker, which was in my eyes a very interesting place in Turin because it's very different than most other places. Not the place itself, but the combination of what is there. So it is an old abandoned railway station. And you have a lot of these places in Turin, and they try to give this back more to the residents and the people that live in the city. And they want to kind of make sure that there's not this big urban voids in cities and that these spaces get a new use out of it. And Bunker has been now there for over 10 years. And it has become more like a cultural center. So they want to redevelop this area by using a cultural program and a cultural project as a starting point. And that's what makes it very interesting and makes it very suitable for the area, because it was basically just a group of friends that started this project. And they already did something small in the city that was very successful with other residents. And they decided to do this on a bigger scale, and that's why they got Bunker, and was supposed to be a sort of a pop-up project that was just there for like a year or something like that. But it was so successful that instead of being now a group of friends, they became this whole association that maintained the place, that created a program for the place, and now it's a mix of all kinds of functions, activities. It's very
like
unique.
Cultural breeding ground.
Yeah,
Can you
exactly.
also link it then to permanent temporality, because it wasn't supposed to be there for this long. It was like a temporary place.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. You can see it like that. They were planning on having it just there for like a very short amount of time, but because of its success and because of the impact that it had on the people, they decided to postpone it, and now it's just there.
Yeah.
It's a statement in the city. Everybody knows about it.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, and is it very different from your place?
Because the place that I interviewed someone is called the Distillery, also like a brewery, and it's the oldest techno club in east of Germany, and it exists for over 30 years now, and it started in a different place, like an old brewery, more in the city center, but because of the noise complaints and the building wasn't safe, it had to move to more to the south, what was really an outskirt at the beginning, now not so much anymore. And it was an old abandoned building because it's close to an old railway station. The area around it of the old railway station is all gone, like it's just a field of grass.
Van het boat, old railway station.
Yeah. And the city of Leipzig and its residents is really proud of the distillery because it survived a lot of things. Like at the beginning, they didn't have electricity, water, anything, and they just used generators and really started from scratch. Like there was nothing. And at first, there's like 2 floors, and the first floor was just a bar at the beginning, and then you had kind of a techno bunker underneath. But they decided that upstairs there was also enough space, so they used that as well for like house more instead of techno. And now it's like really a big thing in Leipzig. Like it's a place where everyone can come together. It's a place for everyone. No one is excluded. It's really small. Like I think max 500 people fit inside.
But sometimes it's like the smaller spaces that make it very nice, because you have this cozy atmosphere. People really can connect together.
And the thing is, they haven't changed that much in over 30 years. Like the only thing that they really upgraded is the sound system, basically. but it has a lot of impact on the area around it, and it really helped with getting the south of Leipzig a bit of a better name, and people want to go there, and people weren't afraid of going to the south anymore.
It's more now part of the that part is also more included in the city. And how do you see this inclusivity coming back in the building or in the people? Or
I think in the people, because there are a lot of open-minded people that want to come there. Nothing is too crazy. You can dress the way you want. They have strict rules that if something happens, or like you get sexual harassed or something, or someone says something that, well, isn't very nice of someone to say, or they kind of make fun of you, you should just go to the bar and they will kick them out. Like, it's not a place where people harass each other. It's just an open
safe space. Yeah.
And they really want to create that, and that's also something the city of Leipzig took from that place, to be an open-minded city basically for everyone.
It's nice. It's such an inspiration for the rest of the city to kind of follow its example.
Yeah. And then in the next episode we're gonna talk about the social impact.
So stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome everybody to our second episode of our project. And in this episode we're gonna talk more about the social impact it had. And recently I actually read quite a nice and interesting article. It was about local culture and reusing old industrial buildings or areas in cities. And they made a very interesting comparison, because they were talking about China and about Europe. And in China, they are really focused on the economical benefits of a city and of projects. So instead of reusing the buildings and keeping the heritage, they tear it all down and build something new, because it's more economical beneficial for the city or for the people that start this project. And they made a comparison with Europe, that in Europe they have a completely different approach. They really focus on sustainability and the value of the building, the history. They want to have the culture and the community involved. And I really realized that that's really the case at Bunker, that they really want to focus on the people and make them the central of the project, and make sure that they don't destroy the history of the place, but they keep it intact and create in that way a new image for the city and for that area. And they had a statement, and it was that minimal consumption of resources is used to get the maximum economical and social benefits. And especially with this project, I realized that the social benefits are very high. They really want to do it in a sustainable way, reusing materials, recycling, and making sure that they create something nice for people that visit.
A long-lasting
exactly
place.
Like an ongoing transformation, and really focus on people instead of how do you make the most money with these areas that become more popular. Do you also experience something like that?
Well, the distillery it's been there for in the same spot for 25, 27 years. And they haven't changed a lot about it, like I mentioned before. So I think they also focus more on creating a place for people instead of gaining a lot of profit and expanding and becoming bigger. That was not their focus from the beginning, and it's not their focus now. But they are gonna move, but I will talk about that later. And then it's gonna be a bit bigger, and the concept is gonna be bigger. So I think in that sense they are kind of the same. And also in Leipzig they tore down a lot of places, but Leipzig is kind of a big city and has a lot of industrial places, and there's still a lot of abandoned buildings and areas that there's no destination plan at this moment. So there are multiple groups of people that have really good ideas, and they just gonna do something with that. But I found in a research by Pier Francesco Cherry I'm not pronouncing it right, but he wrote in like a research article about adaptive reuse of abandoned monumental buildings as a strategy for urban livability. And he mentions that citizens associate historic buildings with meanings that are the basis of a sense of belonging to like a community or like a local identity. And he thinks that therefore it's important to kind of save these places, because it has, most of the time, it has a positive impact, just like you mentioned with Bunker.
Exactly. It's a very, like, these places make a big impact, especially on human beings. And it's a shame that sometimes that gets a bit overlooked for the financial side, because
it's like a division between like a public and a private sector, and also like for the future with different visions of a city, but also with like a housing shortage. But in his research he made a statement, and I'm just wondering what your vision is on that statement. It's that the statement is that buildings are carriers of meanings and values. Like, do you agree? Do you disagree?
I definitely agree, because I think a building holds a lot of character of a place and of its history. Now, in my case in Bunker, it was a little bit different, because there is a value in the buildings that are there that represents the history of the city, because Turin used to be a very industrial city because of its car manufacturing. But I think with Bunker, what gives more meaning and value is the programming and the combination of all the elements that are there. They are really focused on creating encounters between different groups of people that come from all kinds of backgrounds, and that normally in everyday life wouldn't go to the same clubs or to the same hangout places. But here, because of the combination of all these different elements, all these people are still coming together, and that makes for a unique mix of people at Bunker. And I think also they want to really give people the room to participate in the transformation. I think you also said something earlier that people there play a big role, so they want to give them a space in the city. If they have a fun project or something they want to try out, basically any kind of experimentation they want to do, they can do that at Bunker.
It's a new kind of stage for people.
Exactly. And you give them the city a bit back to them then.
Because that's the same with Distillery. Like, it's a techno club, but still it's a place where people can try out like new DJs. Like, everyone, like if they spot you somewhere else, they will book you and give you a stage to just try and become something more than you already have, or it's like a startup or something. So I think, I don't know, I also agree with the statement, because each building, especially like old industrial buildings, have their own stories.
Their own stories, heritage.
And I don't know, I think it's kind of a waste to
just tear it down.
Because in my opinion it also gives character back to the city, instead of just modern day housing with like high buildings or towers or something like that.
I'm also not the biggest fan of that. This creates more identity and more character. Exactly.
So in the next episode we're gonna talk more about the future of these places, because they are both very different from each other. And see you in the next episode.
Bye. Welcome to the last part of our project, and here, instead of looking back and what it is now, we're gonna look towards the future, because I think in this way both cases are very different, because they have different futures and different things that are happening in the upcoming years. Because you already mentioned it a little bit earlier about the future.
So the distillery has survived like 30 years, which is quite a long time.
It's a very long time,
especially for a club. And then also being like 25, 27 years in the same place. it's a long time, and the reason for that is that the community around it has fought multiple times for the place to stay open. Even one time they went to the new town hall to demonstrate and protest against the fact that it had to go. But sadly, the time for distillery has come to go. And the reason for that is that the area where it's located, it was an old railway station, as I mentioned before. And now, for like years and years, it was just grass, there was nothing else. Sometimes there were small events, but wasn't really anything happening. But Leipzig has a housing shortage, and now, finally, after almost, I think, 8 to 10 years of discussions with the municipality and investors and people who are working in the, what's it called, development.
Yeah, like the
companies.
project developers.
Developers. And they started building in the end of 2022. And the distillery is located there, and that doesn't work with the vision that they have
plans
for the place or for the area. So the distillery has to move to Alte Messe. That's like the old trade center of Leipzig. It's not that far from the place it's located now, but there's less going on there. It's much bigger. So the place is gonna extend a little bit more, and
is it a similar kind of building?
No.
Oh, that's gonna
it's
be
like
interesting.
I think they're either gonna build a new building which is slightly bigger, and they also have a plan of have like a place for bands to rehearse, a bit more like a community place, and then the main goal is still the parties that they organize, but it's gonna be a bit more given back to the community that they have. Like they want to give more space to them.
Because it's a very big community. If you're already there for so long, then you have built such a big and strong community around the club.
Yeah, and that's also the case. And a lot of people disagree with the fact that they have to move, but it's just like first they had to move like 3 years ago, but then Corona happened, so it's been postponed like multiple times. But now
it's just no longer possible to postpone
like the 29th of May, they have their last party weekend, and then on Monday they
final goodbye.
Yeah, the last dance. But it's really like a conflict between public and private interests, and that's something that has mentioned in the article that I mentioned before. It's a big thing with like historical or industrial buildings, that it's always a conflict between public and private. And
it's gonna be interesting to see like if the concept and the whole atmosphere is gonna be the same in the new building. Only time will tell.
And they really want to, but I think a building can really be the place for such a concept, and it can change a lot.
It can make or break a place.
Yeah, and it's also gonna be more modern than it is now.
Yeah, and especially because you already have such a strong image and such a certain way of how you work and how the whole atmosphere is. It's gonna be interesting if that's gonna change a lot, or if people gonna change with it in the new building.
Yeah, so it's we will see, and the government also supports it, but I know it's like a scale. It's like going up and down. Like we don't know. They don't know what's going to happen. No one knows. They want to save it, but it's just not working.
Wow.
So that's the deal. But how's the future of Bunker? Because you mentioned it's there already for 10 years.
Yeah, because the place is actually owned by not really a project developer, but it's in the private sector. So it's owned, and these friends ask if they can temporarily borrow the place sort of, to see like, okay, can we do something with it? Let's see if it gives you some added value to the land you have that's not really in use currently. And because this man in the private sector didn't really have any plans with. He was like, okay, let's try it out, let's see what happens. And because it's so successful, he has become more interested in his own land and the area, and the people that were part of the beginning group, the friend group, the association kind of pulled away now because they feel like there's not really a lot more that they can do or bring to the place. So possibly they want to start a new project that's a bit more the pop-up concept because they really like that. And now it's, I won't say it has become very commercial, but they feel like there's becoming too many rules for them to work as creative people in this spot. So they pull out, but the place is still there, and I think it will stay the same, and it's gonna be there for many more years to come. It's a very unique space, but there's no rush for them, for the place to change anytime soon. So I think as long as this concept that they have, and it's a very mix of different functions, so there's always people either like playing padel or there's a circus school even there. There's a lot of crazy things happening. So I think as long as that is successful, and even has a little club part that's very busy in the evenings or doing certain events. So I think it's gonna stay like this until in the future maybe people are getting so used to the place, so the uniqueness goes away a little bit. And then people may be like, okay, we want to find a new space that's unique in its own way.
I think it has to be a space that keeps reinventing itself. Like,
and that's stopped.
Unique
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that stopped a bit now. Like when the association was still involved, the friend group, it kept redeveloping and they were doing all these experiments. But now because the owner is back kind of in charge of the area, it stopped a bit. So it stayed the same for the last few years, and I don't think it's gonna change anytime soon because he's more a businessman. So he has a whole different
more
kind.
business focus.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you, to round it off a little bit, what do you hope to see if you ever go back to Turin? Like, what do you hope to see in that place?
I'm not sure if it's the place, but it would be nice because Turin has a lot of these spaces in the city, so I think it would be very nice if there's more projects like this that really give people the room and the space to experiment, to be a little bit different and be themselves at the same time. So I think it would be nice that this could be an inspiration for others to do something similar in the city, because the space and the room is there. People just need to take the chance. And for you, do you have
what I hope to see for the distillery is that the atmosphere is still the same, even the location has changed. And I'm also really curious because there are still a lot of abandoned buildings in Leipzig. Like some are being renovated into housing, but there are also like a bit more on the outskirts where there are still places where you can do whatever you want. Like, it's so easy to just start a new club or like a cultural breeding ground. There's so much space and opportunity. So I hope to see, if I ever go back, that the city hasn't changed that much, even though there's a housing shortage, that it's still...
Or change for the better.
Yeah, like there's still the creative places still exist, and that there's still room for those people and those places to exist. So I think that's what I hope to see if I ever go back.
Only time could tell. And that is our little podcast. So hopefully you enjoyed it.
See you next time.